All right, cheers. Thanks for joining the UX engineering meeting, where we try to fetch and catch all the gaps in process, but also help each other out with blockers and those kind of things. So in that sense, are there any direct blockers where I am blocking engineering with a certain issue? If so, this is the right moment to bring it up. Otherwise, I'll get to them later. Are there any? If not, then we're going to go through to the next point. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, on to the next point. So I was looking at this merge request from you, Andrew, and your comment was super valid. So I thought like, hey, let's bring it up here. In the MR, which was partly reviewed by Ayana, and this kind of thing, right? Like in the issue, we set up the acceptance criteria of an issue. And then, of course, the merge request review process only makes sense if we actually check the acceptance criteria. Mm-hmm. Like, do we actually do the thing we set out to do, right? And that is, of course, based on the quality of those acceptance criteria, those scans. So I think there's always a point of improvement. But the comment you created, let me see, did I? There was the other link here, and I'll share my screen. So there's some visuals here. Here you can see like, hey, the when alert seems to be missing. This was also missing from the initial mockup. Super true. I answered to this like, hey, the mockups did not represent every outcome of the design's concept. That is not I don't want to do the work. I do want to do the work, but sometimes it doesn't make sense, or it is quicker to be done in writing. I was having a discussion with Hayana about this because I met up with her Friday in real life in Rotterdam. And I was discussing how she does certain things. And she says, like, I don't create any visuals if I don't have to. Like any. Like they just have to read. And I was like, all right, that works. But on the other hand, like sometimes visuals are needed, etc. But I think the main point I got out of that is like, all right, she does that to decrease wasteful energy spent on creating mockups. But on the other hand, it highlights the importance of the text of the concept, right? Like if I wouldn't have put the image there, then there wasn't an image to look at. And then the only thing highlighted there was the text. Mm-hmm. So my basic question would be like, hey, how would you like to see developer handoff be done? Like, do you like the visuals, or is it only exceptionally necessary when something is unclear, and otherwise keep your text? Or like, how could I have done better, or how can we help each other better out in these kind of situations?
I am personally a big fan of mockups. I think they're a good way of catching, as we've seen this thread kind of spiral out, they're a good way of catching things that end up being a little weird earlier in the process than later on.
How would I summarize that? Good way of catching. What's a good word? Give me a good word.
Like inconsistencies or something?
Inconsistencies.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And strange behavior. Yeah, it's really that. And to be honest, like, I like mockups as well. Like I think it, it translates certain things so much better. Mm-hmm. My main point though is, and that is mostly for the design process, I don't want to create like 10 iteration mockups with small visual changes. So what I've done in the last, I know so many issues I've worked on, if there's only a small change towards the design, for example, I've been in talks with Marcel on technical writing. And, like, hey, this copy needs to be changed in this slightly different sentence structure. Like, yes, I'm not going to create a new visual for that because that is just wasted energy, right? But I do want to make it clear, like, for those cases that, like, the mockup will not always represent the latest and the greatest. Like, it will be indicative, if so. Like, I don't know if you've already seen, like, I sometimes like put a note, like, note, this mockup is indicative. Please use the copy described above or below. But I wonder if that was as clear as it could have been.
Yeah, I mean, I think a part of it was just my rush to get something up before vacation as well. Like, but I do find I tend to look at the images first, and then the description later on.
When did I look? All right, so here's a quick idea. What if I put my images in like the collapsible sections? You have to open the images.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna just like an idea. I'm gonna experiment with that.
It might also just be like a transition thing, you know, like Mike was very mock-up first, mock-up forward, I'd say. So it could also just be like a part of a transition.
Mm-hmm. And if they, you know, you talked before about like the some wastefulness there, like, do they need to be high fidelity mockups? I wonder if you could get away with something else that's less time consuming, right? And maybe it's
yeah, I see exactly what you mean, and it is. I'll tell you from my side. Yes, low-fi prototypes or mockups, however you want to call them, should be easier to create. On the other hand, we have this amazing design system that has full fidelity, easy things to play around and throw in your screen. And unless you go outside of that, like it's quite easy to create them, but it's more like the, if we have this screen that you click that, then what happens? And click, and before you know it, you have to like design 4 or 5 different views. And that is the thing which is time consuming, which is, I would say, about the same, just because we have the design system to kind of design a lot of things. Like, here's this thing, you can just copy and paste. Because otherwise it would just be lines and wireframes, which is fine, but I don't like the wireframe balsamic. Like, I'm not that fast in, like, I'm faster in Figma and Sketch than I'm in balsamic. Yeah. And I'm not a big sketcher on paper, because then I need to take a picture of it, and then you cannot read my handwriting. And I see some designers do that, and I just like, I don't know how you do that. Like, I can try it out, but I can assure you it's not gonna be a success, or at least I think so. But yeah, I think the collapsible section is a good thing, and just like the general call out of that, the visuals do not always describe the full image. I'll try to remind if need be. Then on to the next thing, unless there's another comment.
Oh, I think in this particular case, because the copy is so dynamic, there could have been, like, it makes more sense in my mind. This isn't just a sentence change. Like, if we look at what the copy is, it's literally all dynamically generated except for a couple separators. So I think,
yeah, exactly.
In this particular instance, due to its dynamic nature, just like having the full thing there could have maybe saved us this now ongoing UX iteration that we've got going on in the middle of this MR.
Yeah, that's certainly something I would like to avoid. Yeah. All right, learning point. I think we're pretty clear in this. Always good to have the perspective from the other side. Then on to the next. Let me see. So step 1 of Pro. So I want to thank Chase and everyone involved, but mostly Chase, on like creating this @mention handle we now have at our disposal. Let's not use the spam, but I think it's super nice that if you are going to close an issue, please use the mention handle. So you don't have to mention, like, you know, like, who am I going to mention? Just use this mention handle. And it is now defined in the handbook as well. So that's nice. So we can see here in the verification process, like, hey, if all stakeholders are to be informed, just use this mention handle. If you do add progressive delivery, it will immediately pop up. Click in, hey, this thing has been merged. It's looking good as far as I'm concerned. And then I would say, like, if we go off this this copy here. The owner of the epic, mostly the PM, will ensure the issue fits in the context of solution, blah, blah, blah. So I think they are about to close, right? Is that correct? Do I assume that correct, that the product manager should close the issue?
No. I mean, typically, issue closing happens, well, seems to happen, right, by the engineer, I would think, right? If all things have gone up to verification, stuff's in the right place, right? Is that not the case? Or are we suggesting here that we need to like follow back through with the PM?
Yeah, so the thing is, today, later on, is the progressive delivery weekly, because I was originally intending to bring this up in the weekly meeting. But I think Orit and I are both not joining because it's outside of our time zone.
Right.
But yeah, I would love to have a less check on that by Orit and kind of align on like, hey, from a product perspective, I would like product to close the issue. Because if that is the case, then we can also do a functional verify and mostly concerned with like, hey, did we have any follow-ups? Do we need to create any new follow-ups? If so, let's do that. Let's mention it in the issue and then actually close the issue. Then it's really close because then we know what the follow-up actions are, those kind of things. I think currently that process is a little bit muddy. Like the engineer closes it, but you know, the exact requirements or timing when is not super clear. At least that's how I view it. I was wondering what your thoughts are there.
I wouldn't mind not closing it. It doesn't.
You don't get a sense of closure?
No, I don't have a.
Yeah.
I don't have a stake in being the one typing /close.
Okay.
Discuss in next. Yeah, we'll discuss it in next weekly meeting, and then get Orit's eye on it for the last time, and then let's create the handbook update.
I do think we should put maybe an emphasis on closing the issue and opening follow-ups, though, perhaps, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am mostly concerned with follow-ups. Yeah, put emphasis on that.
Yeah, I am a little concerned that if we're not the ones closing the issue, things may linger with more follow-ups or something, right?
What do you mean? Like they will linger with follow-ups?
Yeah, so like instead of creating a follow-up issue and closing the original one and scheduling the follow-up, the verification finds some reason or other that blocks the closing of the issue. And
because like, just for my information, if the issue is not closed, why would you care? Just like wondering.
Because I think if we try to get the follow-ups in the original issue instead of trying to schedule them through the process, it's a less iterative, or it's less visibly iterative, I'd say.
So yeah, so I think like my intention here is fully on the issue is to be closed after follow-up issues are created, not including anything into the current scope. That is yeah, like the wrong way to go. Like I would not advise. That would be horrible.
I think it's worth calling out though.
The creating of follow issues, not including scope into the current issue. Putting emphasis that should be closed. Scope is fixed. Yeah, totally agree. I'll put this up in the agenda. Cool. Thanks for the input here. Next step. So this is the important part where I wanted to get to. So I was discussing with Nadia on the merge process. So this is like the thing we just discussed is just the first step in things that I saw like, hey, we're we're missing out here, or we're not following the process as we have defined, or those kind of things. And more of those things is where I've brought up in the past is like, hey, I'm not sure about this merge request, like I'm not included, or I'm not aware, or somebody else is not aware, or there's inconsistency on like the process that's being followed. And I was discussing this with Hayana, or with Nadia, and she says like the best stage groups that she sees the example of do not enforce approvals, which I'm a big proponent of. I think that's amazing. On the other hand, they do have a habit of over communication and including all stakeholders as necessary. And this is, I think, where we can do better. Like, for example, me making it aware that, hey, I saw this merge request being merged and I didn't even know what it was, or I saw things being merged with UX changes or whatever, and I was not aware that this was a thing. Like, it's not about me approving the merge request that is the problem, not at all. It's more about like me not knowing that this thing even existed and is now changing the process for our end users. I think that is the thing that we need to solve. And I think that is not only for me, but also for Orit, that is for technical writing, which I, by the way, see often included, which is amazing. But those kind of things. So my question here would be, how do you normally see the life cycle of a merge request? And where do you include which people? Tom, tom, tom.
Yeah.
Jason, what about you?
Yeah.
I guess if you're talking about UX, I actually almost never seem to do anything that affects UX. So if I do, then I would usually just ping UX whenever as soon as that MR goes up.
And in terms of like, I want to open up this discussion to beyond UX. Like, of course I'm UX, but it doesn't mean that I do not care for anything else or only UX. Like, it's like in general, like let's say it's a backend only merge request, but it has an effect on performance, or it enables this new thing through the API, which is in a way UX, but that is for later. Like, hey, who do you include? Who, like when does Orit know this thing, it becomes live? Like those kind of things.
I basically just ping the reviewers I need, and then I'm imagining async updates are how PMs or anybody else who's interested would want to know about it.
Yeah, that's a great call out.
So async updates, and with that you mean like what is an async update?
The async updates that we're putting on issues as we're working on them.
Async updates in the issue. Yeah, that makes sense. I love those async updates. The main thing I have, what I would like to see for those async updates is a notification. Like, I don't know about you, but I work with to-dos personally, and I've seen multiple other people do that. I don't know if that's within progressive delivery, but I do not see when an issue is updated unless I'm mentioned. So when I see an async update, sometimes like, oh, this was from 4 days ago, or this was last week, and I don't know what the current status is. Like, I think the key in the feedback I got from Nadia was like, there should be some kind of form of continuously updating each other or keeping each other informed at the very least. Like, the async updates kind of do that, but I wonder if they are as effective as we would like them to be. Like, how do you see that, Chase?
So when we talked about this, a few months ago, when we adopted this sort of process, the one of I think the key primary concerns of other people were how not to spam a bunch of people with what might be considered, something, as just sort of like, here's an incremental update. Here's a thing that I'm not asking for any action on for you, but this is like for your information. This is helpful for a wider group of people, right? So we haven't done that in those async issue updates to ping the group or to directly alert somebody unless it's necessary. So, I mean, I would want to make sure we're doing that correctly or well, or something before we just jump in and start pinging the entire group every single time. I see all of them because I subscribe to the progressive delivery list. So everything that happens on every issue that has an async update, I see it in my email this way. But I'm like email oriented and not to do list oriented, or whatever the internal GitLab to do list oriented. So it has good benefits for me to do that way.
I don't personally need pings from the new tag every time that like Amy or Etienne or Jason is working on something,
Yeah,
I think,
but it's a nice async thing if it's there if you need to go look, right?
I see what you mean, Andrew. Like, it was not at least was not my intention to intend for that mention tag to be used all over the place. Like, the use case I had for the mention tag was purely for the verification process. Hey, we are like, this is in the product right now. Like, this is done. We are now aligned that this is done, right? From an engineering perspective, I assume that if they have done all the work, it is super duper clear. But from my perspective and Orit's perspective as well, it is often, we're like, I don't know, like, is something merged? Yeah, if I see it on GitLab.com, I know, but if it's not, I'm unaware. Unless I specifically jump into the issue after I got pinged on something or something like that.
So would this concern kind of be covered by the above discussion that we had earlier, or are you looking specifically for just tracking stuff that's kind of like in flight?
So yeah, I think this is a very different stage of the process, and like the keeping or like informing stakeholders at the end is like, all right, we at least catch everything instead of dropping some of it. Now it's focus on the rest and see how we can fix that in a way that makes sense. So I wouldn't want to notify all engineers in like when you post a merge request update or something like that. That is not the idea. But I do think it is important that the stakeholders who are involved with that specific issue are updated when you post an update. Because let me phrase it the other way around. You are creating async updates. If nobody reads them, why would you care writing them, right? And to kind of make the other point where Chase, where you were describing, hey, we were mostly aligned with, we don't want to create spam for everyone. On the other hand, you say, I am subscribed to everything. Like, I get all the information I need. You get all of it. I get nothing.
Yeah.
So where do we, like, we need to meet somewhere in the middle which works in a good way. And with that in mind, I would say, I mean, if I would speak from my personal perspective, I would love to be like, if there's an async MR update, ping me on it. Like, just ping me. That is awesome. But that is hard to describe as a process. I think Orit would be welcoming such information. I don't know about Marcel, but which other stakeholders are there to be included? Perhaps there needs to be created something for that as well. I don't know. Like, what would you propose for, for such things to happen? Because my next step in this case would be like, all right, I'll invite, for example, an engineer from a different team where that process is active, and a designer from that team where that process is active, and ask them like, all right, how are things going in your team? What works well? How did you decide on these things? And kind of for us to take inspiration from there. But perhaps we have some intermediate solution which works for us with our own creativity.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm wondering, the first thing I think about when I think about just making this as easy as possible, right? I want to be lazy. So
exactly.
like if we're using a tool like TallTall to do those async updates, I think there's like a way that there's like a, there's some kind of template there that's like, it builds out, right? And maybe there's a way that we can use that template that it provides for the update itself to also include like the, to CC, a subset of people who want to be opted in all the time somehow. You and Orit, I'm fine to have it too. I mean, I don't know how it's possible if I can get more email than I already do, but we can try. Maybe that's one way. I just want to make it as lightweight as possible.
Yeah, I agree there. Make it as lightweight. I mean, like, just to start off with, like, I'm speaking from product perspective here, right? Like, I don't speak for any other stakeholders. For me, it would already be okay. Like, just include me in Orit. Just say, for your information, product progress delivery. I know that's 2 mention tags. I'm unfamiliar with tools as Telltale and how that applies to GitLab, but just that mention of product when you give an update would be more than welcome. And I know, like, maybe I'm selfish here a little bit with, relying on to-dos instead of emails, but I know, like, it's a GitLab supported feature, and like, I know multiple people working with that. Perhaps I'm unsure. Like, I would love to see a notification for async updates, as that kind of continuously keeps us informed, right?
Maybe the async updates in the issues aren't the right move then.
They should they be somewhere else? Or
I mean, I think they're the best place for them, but if you're looking at, if Dimitri is basically looking for a news feed of async updates, right? Maybe that's something. There's something else like, for that.
The feedback that Nadia gave from the other stage groups was basically this: they keep each other informed through issues, Slack, and meetings and stand-ups. That's what I do. So it's not one single thing that fixes the problem of over-communicating and being inclusive in the build process. It's like, all right, where are we today? What are we gonna do? Hey, by the way, I need your help on this. By the way, hey, I'm creating a new merge request because I'm scoping out this small feature subset. Hey, by the way, this might interest you. This is going on. I decided on this certain way of going forward. PS, think about including this other person. I don't know. It's like, it's this thing of, when you do something, who can I include to make more aware of this thing I'm doing and might make sense. I think that mindset is the thing that, like, gives us like the upside, that is what is going to give us the follow through.
I think what you're getting at there is what you've alluded to before, which is just this idea and this comfort with over communication, right? And just to, like, hey, like, and with the always assuming the best intent possible, right? Like, Dimitri probably wants to know about this, right? So go ahead and and let them know, like, and just, you know, try and shift behavior that direction. Maybe that's enough, right? If the other teams aren't really doing anything differently, then other than this, then maybe that's what we should steer ourselves towards.
How would we do that? I know we're going a little bit over time, but if there's a little bit of time left, I would like to at least have an actionable point there.
I mean, we can update the handbook to, make that clear and, a clear, motivation for the team to do so. We can just reinforce it, right? Be like, hey, and do the opposite. When you see, when there's something you would like to get feedback on earlier and you didn't, same thing, best intention possible. Say, next time it would be great if you could hit me up with this earlier, right? And maybe that's another reinforcing mechanism that we can do. I don't know. It's difficult to turn into a process type thing. I think this is more. This is more just cultural than anything. Yeah,
it's a mindset, right?
Yeah.
All right, it's let me set up like a handbook proposal. I think that's like the clearest action we can do, and then we can discuss it in when I'm back. I saw the point on the PTO, Ninja. I have a management issue. I'll link that here. I'll also describe it extensively in Slack channels, and Hayana will be covering, and Ian from Package. So there will be coverage for sure. And I'm trying to kind of neatly wrap up things this week as much as I can. So that is the plan for me going out of office. But yeah, the handbook update, I'll see if I can squeeze that somewhere in between and have everybody kind of like iterate on it and kind of acknowledge if it's okay or not, like this sounds something actionable or not. Sounds like a good idea. Thanks for all the input today. That was super valuable. And there was one point left to discuss, but we'll do it another time. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.